Hi, villains, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. The For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. I'm not even sure if the intro actually played there a moment ago because I didn't hear any music. But less of that. It's always gremlins in this show, and it's fine. That's why you love us, and that's why you come back to watch us again. But as you can see, Paddy's found the fountain of youth here beside us, and Paddy has aged backwards. He's Benjamin Button. He's gone back about 40 years, and this is what Paddy looks like. I'm only joking. I'm joined tonight by the wonderful Matt Hayes. Supremo of the Tottenham Hotspur YouTube world, and he's going to come and he's going to talk to us in something a small bit different. Talk to us about, I suppose, the state of play with Spurs at the moment, because it seems to be. It's like, depending on who you talk to on any given day or any given time, so everybody's going to have a different opinion about what's going wrong at Spurs. I myself, I'm going to be really honest. You guys are still in a pretty decent spot, regards to everything that's going on. We're only seven games into the Premier League, but it's not all happy around the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, is it, Matt?
Yeah, look, I think if we're going to be talking about the state of play, I think state is the key word to put in that, because the last couple of weeks has been absolutely atrocious, and I feel to some extent perhaps things were this bad in the second and third week of the season as well, but a 1-0 victory over Wolves and Watford kind of glossed over the problems that are going on there. But look, there's people struggle to agree on what the problem is because there are just so many of them. And it begins right up at the top with Daniel Levy, and he goes right down to all of those players on that pitch. But yeah, I'm not happy. Basically, not happy. What I'm getting at.
Well, without exasperating you at the start, we leave that to the end. Once we get the juicy stuff about the game out of the way first, I don't mind if you just slam your laptop closed and leave abruptly. I'm okay with that afterwards. But obviously, we play. We'll get on to maybe more generic Spurs talk afterwards. But obviously, Villa are coming to London this weekend, and are coming to play you wonderful guys. And as I mentioned, the great Paddy is over at that game this weekend, and he's actually over in London at the moment, so that's why he isn't here. But so you guys are obviously, as you say, it's been a bit of a topsy-turvy party, 3 wins to start the season, and then it hasn't been so great since then. But in the week, you seem to get things back on track again, and it was, look, I know that they were a pretty lowly team. I don't even know where they were from. Slovenia, Slovakia. Was it Slovenia? Was it Slovenia? And it was a pretty decent win. Well, specifically in the second half, and Harry Kane seemed to find his shooting boots again. Does that give you? Does that kind of raise your spirits ahead of the game at the weekend, or is it just masking over cracks that you're probably seeing previously?
Yeah, look, I'd say it's probably the latter, and I kind of emphasised that point quite a bit on Twitter last night to the dismay of many Spurs fans, and I lost a few followers over it as well. But look, I think we're playing NS Mora. I think it was 337th in the European coefficient standings, and for context, Tottenham were 14th. And it's great to go out and win, and it's great for Harry Kane to go out and bag a hat-trick, but at the end of the day, we played what I wouldn't even call a second-string team. We had kind of a mixture between our first team, looking players like Giovanni Lo Celso, who I'm pretty sure started the North London Derby. You had Christian Romero, who just signed for 50 million, Sergio Reguilon starting left back as well. Yet that team still couldn't be convincing enough to get into that last half an hour and not need to bring on Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, Lucas Moura, and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. And what I'm kind of looking at now is those players are essentially our plan B. Going into this game against Villa on Sunday, if it is, a tight affair, which I really do expect it to be, if we're 1-1 65, 70 minutes, the players that we have to bring off the bench are players that couldn't beat, with all due respect to Moore. They've done incredibly well 9 years after being founded to get to this point. But if the players can't beat them, I don't expect them to be able to do anything against Aston Villa. And that for me is where the concern came from. I made the point when we made those subs bringing on the big guns that we shouldn't have to do that. And in hindsight, great, it worked. Harry Kane scored a hat-trick. But for me, the problem lies within the necessity to make those subs in the first place. And it's just adding problem to problem that I'm seeing with this Spurs team at the moment.
And of the team that finished yesterday, there was quite a lot of, I suppose, fanfare at the fact that Dele Alli was going to be moved back into his number 10 position yesterday, and he didn't finish. Like, he didn't finish in that position in the game. And to be honest with you, he didn't really light anything up. It was only when Lo Celso went into that number 10 position that things started to get moving, and creativity started to flow for Spurs, because I did watch a good bit of it yesterday. But What's the thoughts on how that team finished, and the likelihood of that team maybe starting against Villa at the weekend?
I think there's going to be a lot of similarities in there. I mean, Brian Hill is a player who's really struggled to get some Premier League game time. I don't think he has his first start yet. He was one of our most exciting, the players that was on the front foot. And when he gets the ball, you're on the edge of your seat, and it's as simple as that with him. And he really is. He's still only 20 years of age. He was whipped off with 30 minutes to go. I think he has to be one of the first names on that team sheet. But in comparison, like you're saying, that team that finished the game, there's Kane has to start, Son, Lucas, Højbjerg. Oliver Skip, I think, came off, but he needs to be in that starting team as well. So it is going to be a relatively similar team. I mean, Sergio Reguilon as well. I expect there to be a few changes at the back, which I'm not sure I'm too happy with, because it was Christian Romero and Joe Rodon that played in the centre-back spot last night. And again, while still taking into account the quality of the opposition, there was still an element of they were more assured than what we've seen in the last couple of games. And they seem to play well together as well. And if I'm not mistaken, it is their first time together. But I expected that be changed back to Dyer and Sanchez. But it is a concern that on a Thursday night, being brought right down to the last 10, 15 minutes by Mora, that a lot of those players are going to have to be starting at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. And again, it's just problems everywhere, Neil.
You mentioned there, so you don't think Christian Romero is going to start at the weekend? You think it's going to be Davinson Sanchez and Dyer? Really?
I do think they started the game against Arsenal on Sunday. I think Christian Romero started with Dyer against Chelsea and was decent in that first half, but as soon as Chelsea kind of started getting on the front foot and really starting to cause problems for us at the back, I think Romero was one of the players that looked a bit weaker, even in the cup game against Wolves last week for their second goal, and Dembele gave the ball away in the middle of the park, but it was a really slack pass that somehow managed to make a pass for Romero. And look, there's always going to be that time of him, needing to settle into first of all the squad, the style of play, and as well just a new country and everything that comes with that on a personal level that could affect him on the pitch to some extent as well. But I feel as though Nuno is struggling at the moment to make the right big decisions, and I think including Christian Romero is one that he needs to make. But I think he's just looking back at those first 3 games of Dyer and Sanchez keeping clean sheets and trying to kind of force that out of them again. But any Spurs fan will be able to tell you that when Dyer and Sanchez have a good 3 or 4 games, typically what comes next is a really, really bad 3 or 4 games before they then balance out. And I just think Nuno is still struggling to kind of figure out that best squad. And Romero, I think, is one player who's just on the wrong side of that at the moment.
And we'll get on to Nuno in a moment, because I don't know, and I don't watch maybe enough of Spurs to probably maybe appreciate somebody like Eric Dyer, but and I'm not having a go at you here, Matt, or anything, but like if Eric Dyer is up against Ali Watkins and Danny Ings at the weekend, I would be thinking that Eric Dyer would want to go to bed now and sleep, because he's going to be running all day long, and I don't know whether that suits him, and I could be completely wrong. But for me, that would I would be flummoxed as to why Christian Romero wouldn't be in there, considering he's used to nippy forwards, pacey forwards, South American forwards, if I want to be almost stereotypical and tropism with it. And for me, him and Sanchez, I think, would be a lot more formidable backline. Realistically, I think you should be playing the back 3 like Villa do, but then again, I don't pick the team, so it's but it's like with all the centre halves that you do have there, Rodden is a very, very capable centre half as well. But it's and plus obviously with your two fullbacks in Emerson Royal and Reguilon, they can go up and down the field at will. They're attacking fullbacks as well, so why not utilize them as wingbacks? But for me, I think that with Ings and Watkins, should they be the top 2, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be for Aston Villa, that for me, I think Eric Dyer mightn't be the man for them. Now go out and watch him have an absolute stormer and block pebbles and have a Richard Dunn versus Russia in 2009 or whatever it was type game. But is he? Am I being overly harsh on him, or is he Mr. Steady Eddie Independent? Because every team has that guy that other fans think is shite, and next thing their fans go, no, he's actually not. He's pretty decent.
Yeah, look, at times that is Dyer, and at times it isn't. And for some reason, there seems to be this kind of feeling, whether it's within the dressing room or just the managers that we've had in, is that Dyer seems to be some sort of a leader, or just it kind of feels for these managers as though he needs to be on the pitch. Like he was one of Jose Mourinho's favorite players, and I know in the past Mourinho did try and take Eric Dyer to Manchester United as well. But even for Pochettino, towards the end when things weren't going really well, a lot of the time we saw Dyer selected in that centre back role, and look, he must be doing something on the training ground that he isn't doing as consistently on the pitch. Now, don't get me wrong, he has had some incredible performances for Spurs, and he's even nominated for Player of the Month in August. He had a good start to the season, but it's that inconsistency. And like you go back to a few games last season, we had a run I think it was end of November, start of December, where we beat Manchester City, we beat Arsenal, and we drew 0-0 away to Chelsea, which are 3 incredible results for us. And then you skip on a month, and we're going to Craven Cottage. We drew 1-0 because Eric Dyer lost the header to Ivan Cavallero. And again, Cavallero is a great player, but he's half the size of Eric Dyer. And it's just that lack of consistency in the way you just can't trust him, that you never know what he's going to come out with. And like you said, he could have a stormer, but he could also be the man that's cut out numerous times by Watkins and Ings pressing. And in possession, he could be a bit unsure, and things could really go awry from there. But he just seems to be that first name on the team sheet at the back so consistently.
Mm-hmm. And look, as I say, a lot of fans are probably going to look at the Aston Villa team sheet at the weekend and go, "Oh, Tuanzebe isn't in there, and Courtney House is in there. What the hell is Courtney House doing in there?" Like when you've got Tuanzebe on the bench, and that's probably what I'm like. I've fallen probably victim to that exact same knee jerkism. I suppose, really, to looking at team sheets, because after what we've seen from Courtney House against Manchester United and against for 15-20 minutes against Lukaku in the League Cup, Courtney House is an absolute beast, and he's been impervious at the back for us. So I fully expect him to start in the center of our defense, obviously with Konza and Mings either side of him. But just like that, a lot of eyebrows will be raised because of maybe a more how am I going to say it? I want to say a kind of a favorable name in Axel Tuanzebe, but like I wouldn't mind either of the two of them starting in there. I just think when you have the jersey, it's yours, and you need to, it's yours until it isn't. And while it was unfortunate that Tuanzebe couldn't play last week because he was playing against his parent team, House went out and corralled the best striker, probably the best goal scorer, I suppose, what we call him, that's ever played the game. So it's something, I suppose, when we look at both teams, there probably will be questions asked: why is this defender in there? Why isn't there this defender in there? And next thing I want to get on to, Matt, is that Dean Smith has recently changed up his tactics, changed up pretty radically to a 3-5-2, something that he hadn't really played previously. We played it sparingly in the first season that we were up in the Premier League, but he's gone back to it and he's played it. And since then, we've looked at a completely different outfit. But I know that amongst Spurs fans, there's been a lot of wrangling and a lot of discussion as to why Nuno wanted to come in and play a 4-3-3 system. When 4-2-3-1 has worked so well for Spurs since they've pretty much been competitive within the league, over the last decade. What's the feelings in that? Do you think it's as simple as that, as that there's a level of stubbornness with regards to the setup as opposed to maybe Nuno having a proper plan?
I think it would be a bit harsh to call it stubbornness, because I feel if he spotted this kind of problem within the team and he could pinpoint the problem as the formation, well then I feel like he would change that. And I think it would be a bit harsh to say, well, he doesn't want to change it just to prove himself right or whatever. But I having said that, I don't know why he hasn't changed it, because it is like looking at what we're doing in there. That game against Arsenal, for example, where we're playing that 4-3-3, which at times works. It has worked. That first half against Chelsea the week before, we were really, really good, and we looked as though we should have been leading that game at the break. But then we're going into this game against Arsenal, and you play Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Tanguy Ndombele, and Dele Alli. Now, 2-3 years ago, Dele Alli, maybe 2 years ago Ndombele, and last year Højbjerg. That's an incredible midfield, and one that should win most Premier League games. But those players right now just aren't that good. They're not good enough in order to make that work. And I feel like what he needs to do is either, if he wants to play that 4-3-3, play Højbjerg and Skip, because the two of them together this season I think have been really, really good for us. But otherwise, if you're going to continue with the one defensive player and two attacking players, I don't see the point in kind of having the two attacking players kind of half going forward and half not going forward. If you want to do that, put one right in that number 10 role. And like you said against Moura, when it was Giovanni Lo Celso, that really did work out for him, and he was creating opportunities, got in the score sheet in that first half as well. But I'm struggling to kind of see what Nuno is trying to do with it, with the team selections and then that formation as well. If we don't see a change soon, I think the questions in that Tottenham fan base will start to get a little bit louder week by week. But I mean, I suppose I have to sit here and say I trust the manager to some extent, that he does know what he's doing and that he does have this plan, because I think when Fabio Paratici came in, the first manager he wanted was Paulo Fonseca. Things didn't really work out there with the style of football and
this
stuff
is
like
going to
that.
be my next question, because give us a rundown on that. Look, call it what it was. That manager search saga that happened. As Levy comes out and says, "I want someone who's going to play vibrant, attacking, front foot football," and you guys aren't really seeing it at the moment. Even though you have who I thought, on the face of it, was a ready-made manager for Spurs.
Yeah, look, I'm glad that hunt is over. I'll just say that much. With Fonseca, that was the weirdest one on the ball, because we had the couple of weeks around Mauricio Pochettino and Antonio Conte, and I think Poch got really close in the press, at least, and that kind of fell apart. Then we were going for Conte, then that fell apart. We are kind of back on the Poch train, and then there was a few whispers at some people, and all of a sudden it was Fonseca to Spurs. Deal done. He went on holiday, I think, to Ukraine with his wife just for a week before it happened. And then I think, was going to London to meet with Paratici to sign the contract. And then all of a sudden, there's these fiscal problems with the contract and all this. And look, the amount of lawyers that would have looked through every single page of that contract, I think if those problems weren't unearthed until the last couple of minutes, I feel there's a bit of an untruth being spun our way there. But Fonseca then himself decided to go to the media last week, and he was saying that essentially he was outlining the plan, what he wanted to do, how he wanted to play, and it was too attacking for Fabio Paratici, which, I mean, straight up there shows this huge issue in your question. Like, what are we doing here? What do we do when Nuno Espirito Santo is coming out in the press like, "Oh, I know the philosophy of Tottenham. I know what the club is about. I know how they want to play." But now we're hearing that the only reason he was appointed is because he's not going to play like that. And we've ended up now with Nuno, who just typically doesn't play attacking football, even when he got Wolves as well as he did there. And I probably didn't know this as much throughout his time at Wolves until I spoke to Wolves fans when he was appointed, and they kind of said he just plays boring football. That's just who he is. And people who were calling him a B-Tech Mourinho to some extent may have been right, and here we are. I don't know what else to say.
It's because it's an interesting one, because once again, do a lot of fans of other clubs fall victim to thinking that Wolves completely took the championship by storm the year they got promoted. They were unbeatable, like they were just absolutely fantastic, and it irks me to say it, being a team from the West Midlands. And then they came up into the Premier League, and they got into Europe, and they played really good stuff. They attracted some really good footballers, obviously Semedo, Dendoncker, Raul Neves, Jimenez, and they can still attract this fantastic caliber of player, and that will come because Nuno Espirito Santo played with decent football. And then it's like all of a sudden that he didn't anymore, if that makes sense. And he's gone on to Spurs, and he's like as if he's lost his moxie, or he's doubting himself and maybe his tactical setup, and he wants to change it up to be a bit more. I suppose maybe something's gotten into his mind that maybe his tactic will only get him so far. Now he's at Spurs, and if Spurs really want to win the league, they need to be a bit more resolute. Obviously, you mentioned there that you brought in Paratici. With him, he had how would I put it? He tried to butter both sides of his bread with Juventus and the and the Super League, and then he comes to Spurs. What I mean is he's a very he's a good sporting director. He's a good sporting director. But if he came in and wanted something completely different than Levy was going to the fans with, then there's discontent, not discontent, but there's this connection from the top down then at that stage, and it's something you alluded to at the start. So realistically, does this all like this, and this is a crude phrase, and I'm going to use it anyway, but is the shit flowing up here towards Levy?
Yeah, it's not the first time in the last couple of years he's done this, because I think Jose Mourinho, before we appointed him, I think when we got Poch back in 2014, Jose was someone that Daniel Levy wanted to bring into the club. And of course, it failed back then because we were essentially just happy to be in the Europa League team. And that's not what Jose Mourinho wanted at what was close to his prime. And then for a split second, it looked as though Mourinho was available. And Levy cut ties with the best manager we've had potentially since the 60s or 70s in Mauricio Pochettino, just to get Mourinho in, despite the club completely building in the opposite way, having this long-term project, playing attacking, free-flowing football, trying to bring youth through. Put it all to the wayside. We want Jose. We want him now. And then he came out in at the end of last season. Was it Villa we played, or last home game of the season? He came out in the match program for that. And I think he was saying,
season, there was the Ryan Mason was in charge. The fans were not too happy about the Super League first of all, and then they weren't too happy with Ryan Mason either. And but I remember that there was a big piece in the pre-match from that.
Yeah, he was talking about the DNA of the club, about how we want to play free-flowing attacking football, how we want to bring all of this back to the club. And see, the thing is, at that point, I genuinely thought he believed. I still do believe he actually meant that, and he wanted to do that. But this guy that he's known and respected and kind of been friends with on a personal level for a few years, in Fabio Paratici, becomes available, and he struggles to say no to these people that I honestly think he's just starstruck by, and just feels so lucky and so privileged to be able to bring them into the club. And he kind of throws those things to the wayside a little bit in order to get this in. And you then end up with, this kind of board that apparently want attacking football. Then you bring in this director of football that wants defensive football. You have these players who, some are brought in under Poch to play attacking football, some are brought in under Jose to play defensive football. And there's such a disparity at every single level of this football club that I always compare it to the way we recruit. We want to buy the best players. We want to pay high wages. We want to be like competing with the best, but we want to do it in a way that's cheap. And it's this disparity the whole way through, trying to get to every place in the easy way that is creating those first cracks and everything. And then it just starts peeling away further and further. And Daniel Levy is the root of the problem. He's not the only problem, but he is the root of the majority of what's going wrong with this football club.
Another thing I suppose that kind of engulfed the Spurs off season was a little known striker. Not too many people would know him down the ranks in your club. Harold Kane, I think his name is. I don't know. He's eligible to play with Ireland, I think, or something. He was at one stage. But no, Harry Kane. In all seriousness, Harry Kane. Maybe he saw, I don't know, and I'd like your opinion on it as well, because look, it was a pretty protracted piece, and it almost went side by side in parallels with us and Jack Grealish. You guys held on to Kane, we sold Jack Grealish. I firmly believe it was one or the other was going to go to Man City, and it was Jack Grealish. We then had an opportunity to invest in our team and our club, and we have done. We've bought some decent players, but I think, or would it be fair to say that whole paralysis that probably came over the club with the indecision with Harry Kane, not being able to, maybe, like a lot of players looking at the club going, I don't know, do I want to be there if Harry Kane isn't going to be there? Probably that stifled maybe you guys bringing in more attacking talent, because realistically it was Emerson Royale and it was Romero at the back, and the attacking talent up front didn't really materialize for you guys.
Yeah, I do think that played a big part, and I think kind of the main part it played was, if like we lost Carlos Vinicius, who we had as our backup striker, so there was always, I think, a feeling that we needed to get in another striker. And it wasn't until maybe 8-9 days before the end of the window that it was done. It was final. Harry Kane was staying. And I feel what happened there was, if we keep Kane, maybe there was a plan to spend 20-30 million on maybe a Wout Weghorst from Wolfsburg, or a player kind of that ilk, who's not at the top level of European football, but can be a player to do a job for us, kind of like Fernando Llorente did. But we were unwilling to do that, because if we did that, bought a 20-30 million pound player, and then Harry Kane was gone, we needed two more strikers all of a sudden. And you'd rather just buy the two 50-60 million pound strikers. Lautaro Martinez was the biggest one that we wanted. And it was just that kind of lack of knowing where the Kane situation was going to go, stifled, as you said, the incomings at the top of the pitch and everywhere else as well. Because like it's so true that I think for a striker, if you're coming to Tottenham, you don't want to be there if Harry Kane is there, because you're not going to play. But for every other position, you don't want to be at Tottenham unless Harry Kane is there. And I mean, we were so lucky, and I was actually sitting down watching that game last night, and we were playing more, and the ball got to Christian Romero at one point, and saying, what's he doing here? Like, honestly, what is Christian Romero doing at this football club? It's the Serie A Defender of the Year last year. He's just won the Copa America. He was wanted by Messi at Barcelona, and this is what he's doing now. It was a painful moment, but yeah, the Kane situation kind of broke everything. And also kind of stunted our start to the season, despite the fact we got the good results. There was a while before we, I suppose we still haven't really got running, but there was, not knowing who's going to be our number 9, who's actually going to play the first couple of games of the season. And, I blame Levy 50% for that, and I blame Harry Kane the other 50%.
Do you think do you think he's firing on all cylinders? Do you think and it's hard to say, and you never want to kind of fully admit it, and to be honest with you, I'm kind of glad that Jack Grealish isn't with Aston Villa now, not just from what I'm going to say here. Look, Jesus, I'd love to have his talent in the team, and I know every podcast I go on to, I say this is the last we're going to mention the Jack Grealish anymore, because he's not a Villa player, but if we were to have another year where we staved off a big bid from another club, maybe, and he didn't maybe sign a contract this year to give us a false sense of hope, we would all be thinking, well, does he really want to stay here? Is it just, are we just biding our time? Is he just going to leave at the end of the year? What's that going to do for our future prospects? But we've ripped off the band-aid now, albeit a very hefty 100 million pound band-aid, which I think was a very fair price. And I would have liked more. Obviously, I think he's worth more. But do you think that potentially in Kane's head that it's not really sorted with him, and at the end of the year, provided you guys don't win the league or win a cup or do something pretty decent in the UEFA Cup, he's still going to be at the same juncture or crossroads he was at the end of this year. Yet he'll still have 5 years left in his contract, or 4 years, or whatever it is, because of the massive contract that he signed.
Yeah,
is like. It is his, and I don't want to call it dip in form, because Jesus Christ, what I'm doing here is I'm actually willing him nearly to score goals by talking about him, and I don't even want to do it. But like, is the fact that he's dropping back so deep a lack of trust in the system, or is it something that you'd seen creep into his game even in last year?
I do feel as though there's two different ways to look at this, and I think over the summer for England at the Euros, I looked at it as the way of kind of praising Harry Kane, and kind of at Spurs now, I'm looking at it at a different way. And the be all and end all is last season, Harry Kane dropped deep, played almost that quarterback role, and had the best season of his career. And that, I think, is something that shouldn't be ignored. And what I was saying kind of during the Euros was, well, Gareth Southgate, his best player is Harry Kane. Surely he has to play him in his best role if that's going to be dropping deep. It didn't work in that England system because that is not the way they were playing. And ultimately, Kane had to just kind of bite the bullet, go up top, and he ended up scoring 3 or 4 goals. I think he needs to do the same at Tottenham, because Nuno isn't going to implement a style. I don't think he has the ability to implement a style where Kane in that deeper role can be the player that can do that. But I suppose it is a fairly appropriate point that maybe it is a lack of trust in the players around him. And Dara put in the comments a while ago saying that Son is more important to Tottenham than Harry Kane. And I think in terms of creativity, that is absolutely true, because I kind of get the feeling that when Kane is now dropping deep, because the players know that that's not what he needs to be doing. They don't want to give him that ball to give him the chance to do it, because ultimately we need him on the last centre back. We need him to be the man on Gabriel against Arsenal, or on Thiago Silva against Chelsea, or hopefully on Courtney House on Sunday. But he doesn't seem to be willing to do that, and it's hurting his stats this season for sure. And I just think a lot of it comes back to he doesn't want to be here as much as he did in the past, and maybe he won't be willing to make as much sacrifice for the team as he has done in the past. And I never thought we'd be saying that about him. I never thought we'd be saying he'd be skipping training, but he is hurting the team right now by playing a position that I'm sure isn't the one that Nuno was putting on that whiteboard in the dressing room for him.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting, because everything is so different than when we spoke the last time before the last game. Yeah. Well, everything is different except from the point that there was still trepidation about the manager at that time. Nobody was too certain about Mourinho and about his tactics, and Mourinho was getting to that kind of, he gets into this kind of position with a club whereby he likes to grate back. He doesn't like when someone's nudging up against him. He likes to nudge back again, and he was getting that way with Spurs, and it was only a matter of time before something happened. And he I can't remember. Did the club relieve him of his duties, or did he leave just before?
Oh no, he was sacked.
All right,
he was aggressively sacked.
Aggressively sacked. Okay, yeah. Soften his cough a small bit, but no, it is an interesting one. And look, as I say, that it was, I suppose, like that the club is trying to reformulate, I suppose, since then. And look, Mourinho's done it again. He's left the club, and he's, the club is slightly in turmoil after he's left. So it's something that he does. If I was to put a gun to your head, Matt, and I won't, because I like you.
You're so kind.
Yeah. What formation and what team do you see play on Sunday?
Is this one that I think will play, or that I would pick myself?
Which one do I want? Give me both.
Okay. It's going to be a 4-3-3
okay.
for whatever reason. And Reece will be back in goal, which you'd expect and want the league games at this point. I think who's going to start right back, actually, because Tanganga has, I think the last 2, maybe 3 seasons, has started the season really well at right back, had a few good performances against bigger teams, and then kind of struggled to keep that up. Emerson, in his few appearances for Spurs so far, bar his first appearance, I think the best thing I can say about him is he's an utter clown. and is, I think, what we thought we were getting rid of in Sergio Aurier, in that he's defensively rash. He's supposed to be good going forward, but he just can't really show it, and he commits stupid fouls all around the place. So I think if we do want to go for kind of not actual attacking football, make it seem like we're playing more attacking football, I think maybe Emerson will be in there. Like I said, Dyer and Sanchez in the middle, Reguilon at left back. The three midfield, Højbjerg is going to start. First of all, I think Dele Alli will be nowhere near that team after the last couple of weeks. But I suppose in a similar vein to Eric Dyer, he seems to be one that a lot of managers, maybe excluding Mourinho for a couple of months, just keeps on picking. So I put Højbjerg in there. I'm going to go with Skip mainly because he was taken off with half an hour to go in that game yesterday, and a lot of Spurs fans are expecting it, and I can see why. Bryan Gill in that midfield position, kind of more in a, I suppose it could be a bit closer to a 4-2-3-1, maybe now that I say that out loud, but kind of in that kind of free-flowing position in front of those two holding midfielders, and then Lucas and Son either side of Harry Kane. The changes that I personally make to that, I probably go with the centre-back pairing you said in putting Romero alongside Sanchez. Give me Tanganga out at right back. Maybe put Gill up a bit further instead of Lucas and drop myself into the midfield. But I'm going to be disappointed with the lineup. Almost whatever happens. Like,
I actually, do you know what you mentioned about Pierre-Emile Højbjerg? I think he's a magic player. I think he's brilliant. I would love him to play. I would love him to play in our midfield. Although our midfield is really good at the moment, it's really, the structure of our midfield is brilliant at the moment, and something that a change of formation has really helped us with. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, like, he was excellent last season. I would have had him in my team of the season. For sure last season in that position, and he went on to play well for Denmark. Do you think maybe with somebody like him, and like looking at your team in comparison to our team, and I know we had a couple of people that were away, but like COVID, broken season, goes into a truncated season then afterwards, which starts a small bit earlier, then goes into the Euros. Do you think a player like Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, you said that maybe he hasn't been up to speed of it this year, do you think maybe that has had something to do with it, or are the same kind of little idiosyncrasies that maybe you saw in previous year just coming back to be more magnified this season?
I think if there's any player in that Spurs team that's suffering from any form of burnout, it is Højbjerg. You know, I think he was the only outfield player in the Premier League last season to literally play every single minute of every single game, which is an incredible accomplishment for any player. But kind of at the intensity that he plays with so often, it's even more impressive. And look, players are to some extent only as good as the players around him. And look, there are certain players like, you know, Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, who can kind of transcend the incompetence, I'd say, of their teammates. But Højbjerg, in that kind of that important role, he needs the help of those two midfielders around him, kind of in keeping games condensed into the middle of the park, when that's what Tottenham want to do. If he makes a little bit of an error, as you can often expect in there, he needs some players behind him to help him out a little bit. And I feel like that has just been lacking a lot more than usual this season, in every department, and he has failed from that. But if that man doesn't get any sort of muscle injury this season, if he does keep playing to this level, I'll be absolutely flabbergasted, and I will start to ask questions about the anti-doping tests that are going on there, because he is an absolute machine, even though that quality has been somewhat lacking this season.
Yeah, it's just, you know, hopefully that doesn't happen to him anyway, because he's a very good player to watch, and definitely, you know, there was talks maybe that Douglas Luiz might move on prior to you guys purchasing Højbjerg. There was talks Douglas Luiz might move back to City, and I would have thought I was like, he was definitely top of my list from the Premier League to snatch up anyway. But you guys got in there nice and early that transfer window to snare him. I suppose looking at the Aston Villa team, I think the Aston Villa team is pretty much going to be as it has been for the last week or so, last 2 weeks. We're definitely going to play the 3-5-2 tactic once more. It's served us really well. We were nowhere near a 3-0 losing team against Chelsea. We beat Everton 3-0, albeit there was some hairy moments, or not hairy moments, but some lull points, I think, in that game. And then against United, we just put in a very, very disciplined midfield defensive performance. The spacing between our midfield and defense was brilliant. We fanned out in midfield, which is something we never do. We normally go with a diamond of our 3 or our 2 in midfield. We fanned out across the pitch, and we took the game to them really high up the field, and we completely stopped them getting any ball into Bruno Fernandes. But I think that our team would be very much as it is. A couple of guys have mentioned it there in the comments earlier on. I'm just going to bring one up here from AVFC US. So it's going to be 5-3-2, 5-3-2, or 3-5-2, whichever way you want to call it. I think House definitely keeps his place. So you're going to have Konza, House, Mings, Cash, and Target will be the two wing backs. And I think that I think they're going to have a job to do with the weekend, more so coming backwards than going forwards, based on the fact that, especially if you guys have Brian Hill and Son on the wings. Our midfield three are deceptively good. They carry an awful lot of ground, and they seem to work an awful lot better this year with Jacob Ramsey, who for me has been the find of the season for Aston Villa so far. We've spent 30 million on Bailey, 38 million on Buendia. We've spent money on Danny Ings. We've spent money on, but Jacob Ramsey cost us nothing, came through. He's like our Oliver Skip, except he's a bit more meaty in the tackle, and he's a bit more robust when he gets around the field. But himself and John McGinn and Douglas Luiz work really well together in that midfield three, and they're all action. And they're not only all action because our two strikers at the moment are getting to know each other. One of them is getting back into fitness, and the other guy, Danny Ings, spends more time in the right back position, chasing people back. Danny Ings' engine, his pressure rate, his teamwork, he's all around kind of, I suppose, just his all-around endeavour and honesty is just a joy to watch. And he's one of these players that when you watch him playing with another team, you see him score the spectacular goals and you see him being a thorn in your side. And I'm not going to say you find it difficult to like him, but you kind of go, how does he do that? But when he's playing with your own team and you're watching him week in, week out, you're like, Jesus, he's absolutely everywhere, all around the field. And himself and Watkins, I think, will be up front. But I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a tough game for both teams during the week at the weekend. I'm certain, like you named those players on that Tottenham team. If they just all they need to do is click for one game, and you're beaten. There's really good talent on that team, and even though that you're a bit, maybe you're a bit unsure about the tactics, or maybe what Nuno is going to put out, or maybe there's a bit of a depression around the club at the moment. Are you still confident that you guys are going to come out with a win at the weekend?
Something that I've kind of developed over the last 18 months with Spurs is, despite my delusions over a season in general, I've become somehow fairly astute in predicting individual games, and I can't see us winning this game, Neil. I really can't. And look, it could just be that kind of general negativity and that feeling of, we've just lost to Arsenal 3-1. We're on our worst defensive run since 2003. I don't think Nuno's the man. It could just that kind of feeling that's making me negative. But if this team clicks, we win a game. But they don't click ever, and that's the fear. And look, I do, even when you're just naming that team there, I do have maybe a bit of hope that with you playing that three at the back, that if we kind of put our front three right on top of your back three, that we could cause issues in that way, kind of like we did similar to Chelsea in that first half, and like really, really isolate each of those centre backs. But it doesn't usually last longer than it doesn't last long enough to actually get us a lead in that game and to hold on to things. The other team change something and we're done. And it's just that lack of a plan B. It's the lack of effort, the lack of Harry Kane being able to play in the Premier League, judging by his form this season. I really can't see us winning it. And it hurts me to say that, but it's just that feeling is just there constantly. That kind of dreaded feeling you have going into the game, like you almost don't want the game to be played, sort of. That's just where I'm at the moment. Yeah.
Well, if there's any suspicious packages right around the Tottenham Stadium at the weekend, we know where to go looking, Matt. No, we can't have this game being played. I don't feel confident.
Who do you think paid for Paddy's ticket?
It's got an Irish postmark on it. Jesus, yeah, that there's a lot of layers to that, actually. When I just mentioned but no, I suppose for the game at the weekend, we're coming off a historic win, 1-0 win in Old Trafford. Jesus, if we were to pull off a win in London for Aston Villa Football Club is a big deal in itself. Never mind the win against Spurs, a win in London. And to follow up Old Trafford with a win in London would be like magical stuff. And look, we had some famous wins last season, and we can rattle off wins against the bigger teams, but where we struggle is against the Watfords on opening day. And once again, with the greatest will in the world, Watford beat us fair and square, and they beat us because they were the better team on opening day. But some teams just get the better of us, and teams that we would be expected to beat. So what I'm trying to get at here is that while I'm not cocky about winning and confident about winning, I think that we can go and we can give Spurs a good rattle, because I think that we're probably a team, because of the work rate we have in there, that no team that's down on their luck really wants to come up against at the moment. And with our magician with long hair on the bench, Nanny McPhee, drawing up all these set pieces all over the place, because have a look into our set piece coach. He's become a bit of a cult hero around Villa Park, because we're scoring from set pieces, we're creating from set pieces, and we're getting a name for being pretty lethal from set pieces, whether it be throws, whether it be free kicks, whether it be corners, whatever. We've just changed up little things like Douglas Luiz. No one knew he could take a corner. Well, they did know, but we were, because we had somebody probably like Jack Grealish, who we felt was a better corner kick taker. Douglas Luiz wasn't taking them. Now Douglas Luiz is taking them. They're being whipped right into the area, into deadly positions, and we're getting goals from them. So this is my long-winded way of trying to delay tactics so that I can come up with a score that I think is fitting. And I would, well, as I say, I could see Villa winning 2-1. But I could also see it being a 1-1 draw, and Villa being absolutely delighted to come away out of the month of October, out of the month of September. And I know we'll be in the 2nd or the 3rd of October, but out of that 5-week period, coming away with a valiant victory against Chelsea, a victory against Everton, a victory against United, and a draw against Spurs. I think Dean Smith will be opening a nice fresh can of whatever he drinks and enjoying looking back at those results, because going to London for Aston Villa is not usually a happy hunting ground. So coming away with a point, I think everybody would be happy with that.
Just out of curiosity, I suppose, like as a Spurs fan, I know all too much about the negativity within the fan base, but as an Aston Villa fan, like do you actually see Tottenham as like going and playing one of the big 6 teams? Like, do you see us as an actual sort of like challenge, or one of those, I don't want to say great days out as if you're like a conference team, but kind of one of those big challenges, like one of those games that you relish almost as a free passes in? If we lose, it's grand at Spurs. Like, I really can't imagine that mentality is still there.
This is that's a great question. So, like, in my lifetime of following Spurs, I would have thought ourselves and Spurs were the next best of the rest. With Everton, like, the three of us would be the next best of the rest, and we would have always been boxing clever with Spurs and so on. And Spurs would go out and make their flashy signing and a Klinsmann, and maybe bring in a Les Ferdinand and an Armstrong or whoever, and Villa would still be vying for the 4th position in the league with them, and usually would be out finishing them in the league. Maybe 4th, they might finish 4th, Spurs would be 5th, 6th, whatever. So we would have had great battles. But then obviously Spurs then kicked into a gear from a financial point of view and knew that football was changing. And we obviously still had Doug Ellis, and then we had Randy Lerner, and things got close between us again. And then we didn't have Randy Lerner, and things went right down low. So I suppose, really, to answer your question, I think Aston Villa fans will circle the Spurs game and go, they're a nice team, nice barometer to be able to put ourselves up against. And up until probably this year, I don't even think I think last year we would have looked at you and said, right, there are points that we need to rob, as opposed to points that we can actually really maybe tentatively put down, because obviously we finished like nearly got relegated the year before. So to answer your question is that Villa fans of certainly in my vintage and my following them since the mid-90s, early 90s, we would always circle Spurs and go, a good team, a good barometer. If we want to be where we want to be, we need to beat Spurs. So that probably answers the question. Like, we would never see you as a pushover. Like, you've got absolute quality. You're a very wealthy club. Stuff. So it would be remiss. It would probably just be putting claret and blue glasses on us to say, nah, Spurs are nothing anymore. They're not a top 6 team. They kind of are. Well, they're not kind of are. They are. They're perennial top 6 finishers. And there is a fear factor, I think, there still with Spurs. And I be honest with you, I think, and this can happen with fan bases as well, that maybe just had gotten so close to pushing on to the next level and never really did it, is where do we go next? Where do we go next? Because everything from here is a slight regression, and that could be a bit difficult. It was difficult for us when we were trundling down the league after Martin O'Neill left. Very difficult then when we had Houllier came in, and we had to rally at the end of the season. Then we had Lambert. Then we had Tactics Tim. Then we had, we had a litany of
God,
managers.
don't talk to me about him.
Litany of managers then after that. And it just didn't work out. And believe me, things got hairy among the fan base around Villa Park. And people weren't, it was toxic because there was stuff going on that shouldn't have been going on. Then we nearly went out of business. So what I'm trying to say here is I think I can certainly empathize to the way Spurs fans are at the moment. But realistically, I think that you're not going to fall too far before you start to go back up the league again. And I think that you're probably as just a small bit, like potentially a manager, but I think that Nuno, I think it'd be absolutely madness to get rid of Nuno after 7 or 8 games. And I don't think he does. I think he lasts the season anyway. And I think that there is more for him. I think it's an implementation thing really for the players. But Villa will look at this and see, these are earned points against a team that are of a higher in the pecking order than but they're where we want to be, but maybe not where we are just yet.
Love it. That's what we need. Thank you.
a couple of chats there because I neglected the chats. I say and I apologize about that. Dara Grady, was in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and he saw Moura score a goal, which is interesting. One of very few. I can imagine you're one of very few Irishmen to have seen Moura score a goal live, which is interesting. Soupy Mark says he definitely have house in. He's earned it absolutely, and I think the meritocracy that Dean Smith has is very evident. I know he gets stick sometimes for maybe having his favourites and playing the same 11. He certainly did last year. I think the meritocracy around House earning the shirt, I think certainly will allow him to keep it. Allow him to keep it for sure. We were talking about Wolves earlier on there, and Ad says Wolves didn't really attract any of those players. Mendes brought them in, and that could be true. Mendes hasn't really followed Nuno to London, so we'll see, which is interesting because you think that his eyes would light up with that scenario. Maybe Levy didn't want his grubby mitts around the club or anything like that. Who knows? I suppose that's for a tell-all story at some stage.
I think there's some bad blood there with what happened with Gennaro Gattuso when we kind of pulled out of that last minute. I think he's represented by Mendes as well. So I feel as though there might have been some relationship strained there, shall we say, between Tottenham and the agents.
Maybe so. Stephen Evans thinks it's going to be 2-0 to Villa. That would be great for me, maybe not so much for Matt. And he thinks that Watkins is due to score. Ad says about the Kane situation is hanging over the entire squad. They all know he's leaving. It's just a matter of when. Is that still... I presume it's true until it isn't. But then again, what does he have to do to prove that he wants to stay?
Oh, I don't think there's anything he can do, to be honest. I mean, I genuinely think he has the boat has sailed for him in terms of getting a move to Manchester City or to one of those top teams, because he has a bad season this year. He goes from being a 28-year-old striker who sometimes get ankle injuries, but is one of the best in the world, to being a 29-year-old striker who gets injuries, who was a bit past his best, and all of a sudden the 150 million that we were asking for becomes maybe 80, 90 million, and then all of a sudden City are maybe will give you 50 or 60. And I think things really can change that quickly with him. He will leave. I can't see him being here beyond next summer, but I don't think it'll be the big flashy move that he expected he'd get, to be honest.
If Harry Kane goes and signs with Juventus, our team in Italy, Harry Kane scores 40 million goals in a season in Italy. And I think he should. I think his game suits it. I think he can play in that style, that slower style. I think he would light it up. I think he'd go out there and be brilliant. But I don't want to be selling any of your players because people did it to us for too long, trying to sell Jack Grealish. This one has really stumped me. Harry is short for Henry and not Harold. I'm going to leave that one out there. I don't have an opinion on that one because I feel like I've been lied to all my life if it is short for Henry. Because it's not even shorter than Henry. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's not even shorter than Henry. But then again, Jack is short for John, and John isn't shorter than Jack in numerical number.
True. Yeah. Before.
These are the tangents I go on podcasts.
To be honest, I enjoy talking about this more than I enjoy talking about Spurs at the moment.
Here's one for you, Matt. Dele has shocked me how far he's dropped in such a sorry, I'll start that again in English. Dele has shocked me how he's dropped so far short of his initial promise. Maybe he's just lost the hunger. I remember he came on as a sub one game against us years ago, came on and won the game. And he's only 25 years of age, which nearly blew me away. He had that brilliant season when he was 21 after he signed from NK Dons. And he's been on like... And I know that he does have his struggles personally and stuff like that. But what you think is it with Dele Alli? Is it just a lack of hunger?
I really don't think it is. And when you kind of think it's not a lack of hunger, it's really difficult to pinpoint exactly what it is, because he comes out and he does these interviews all the time, and look, maybe he does it a bit too much to the point where maybe you can see through it, but he says, I want to improve my game. I know I'm not playing well enough. And I think you can see the kind of desire on the pitch, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't work for him. And that one season, 2016-17, I was actually only in work today talking to a few lads about this. He was ridiculous. Like, he was genuinely like being compared to being the next Lampard, Gerrard, Scholes. He was smashing goal scoring records in comparison to those few. For me, he's one of the players that truly made me fall in love with football. Watching him and that kind of link up with Harry Kane and his kind of intricate runs and these passes and just the sheer... It was all natural to him. It was all this natural intelligence and natural ability. And for whatever reason, it just seems to have faded. And I think the problem with him under Jose in particular was that he needs kind of a father figure as a manager. Like, at MK Dons, he had Carl Robinson, who I think is always that to all of his players. And he continued that when he moved on to Oxford. With Pochettino, he was... Players literally said he's like a father to us. Danny Rose, I think, calls him dad. It's a bit weird. But like, I think it's just a combination of loads of different small things, whether it's kind of an inability to adapt to different systems, or maybe a stubbornness to want to be that number 10. I don't know what it is, but God, if I knew what was going wrong with Dele Alli, I'd make sure I got the word to him, because I don't think anyone knows.
Dara has a suggestion as well, just in case you haven't had the fish and chips in the Spurs stadium. Apparently, they put minty stuff in the mushy peas, and it's top class. So that's just a public service announcement. As you know, we're much more than a football podcast here. We're now branching into the culinary arts as well. So if anybody's got other recipes or little strange things they throw into their mushy peas, please DM us. We'd be delighted to share it on our podcast going forward. Alfie says that he's a lot more confident going against Spurs this Sunday than he was last season. I suppose a win in I am, I suppose, as well, because a win in Old Trafford will do that to you. And plus, we were on a poor run of form before we played Spurs last season. Coming up to the end of the season, we're beginning to fizzle out as well. So I don't think any Villa fan could really say that they were confident going into many games as well. We've got an answer. Harry is a male given name, the Middle English form of Henry, but it's also a diminutive form of Harold, Harrison, or Harvey. It's one of those rare situations where we were both right. I
think it's even rarer that someone admits that. I respect it.
Exactly. So guys, there's a load of comments in here. Paul Merson, Villa legend. I wonder if this is the real Paul Merson. If it is Paul, I really appreciate all your work you did for Aston Villa. But 3-1 to Villa, I honestly think we'll turn them over. Rod says that he's just excited to see Villa play again. Our squad is just great to watch, and I think that there's a key word in there, that our squad is very good. I think when we came up into the Premier League, we were playing more or less the same team week in, week out, and even last year we were playing the same team week in, week out. Now we have a squad, and we still have Bailey, Buendia, Morgan Sanson, Trezeguet's back training again. We've got El Ghazi, who was starting and scoring goals at the start of the season, now isn't even coming off the bench. We've Bertrand Traore as well, who was a mainstay in our team last season. He's now seen as a change of pace player. We have Axel Tuanzebe on the bench. The only thing we're missing, I think, really is a real, and this isn't saying anything bad about Jed Steer, is a real top sub goalkeeper, maybe like a Galini, like Spurs do, because he cut his teeth in the Premier League with us, and we were too very, very quick to get rid of him because we needed that 5 million sell-on clause. Otherwise, we would have gone bust. But Galini is a top class second string goalkeeper. But I think apart from that, we've got strength and depth, and I don't know if anybody out there is listening, and I know that we put this. I meant to put this on at 8:30 so that people go watch the under-23s and come in here and watch it afterwards. But I forgot that the under-23s was starting at 7. Does anyone know what the final score was in that? It was 0-0 when I popped on. So if anybody has that, the reason I mention is because I know Philogene Bede started that game. And Carney Chukwuemeka didn't start that game, so I imagine he would be on the bench and he would be an option from the bench on Sunday as well. So bringing through that homegrown talent like Spurs are with the likes of Harry Winks, Oliver Skip, and Dane Scarlett as well, are people that and Troy Parrott, who is lighting it up down at MK Dons at the moment. I'm laughing there. There is John and Jack, Harry and Henry, mushy peas, what a pod. Exactly. Yeah, that's what we get to. That's what we get to. Rod makes a good point here. I think Ericsson leaving was treated far too casually by Spurs. We at Villa and other clubs were terrified of him. Spurs just let him walk out the door. Crazy. This last question I'm going to ask because Jesus, we're nearly an hour into it. Fuck it.
This is a question that could be keeping going for another hour, I'll be honest. I do agree with that. But what I would say is, and someone made the point as well about Vertonghen and Alderweireld, that it was treated too casually, and I think we have tried to replace them, but the issue we made is waiting until they left to replace them. We knew Ericsson was running down that contract. We knew he didn't want to stay and he was going to leave. A year before he goes is when we need to get a player and start kind of getting him into that team. And you do still have to say Ericsson for the last 18 months was woeful at Spurs. I think it might have been a good 2 years since he actually got a corner past the first man at Tottenham. He went, this dead ball specialist who went 3 years without scoring a free kick. He did have his own flaws, but yeah, there's that kind of prime team of 2016-17. We didn't replace them in any capacity, I suppose. And there was 18 months there where we didn't sign a player, where I think the only real bid we made was £15 million for Jack Grealish. And we're paying the price for that right now. We really and truly are.
Yeah, it was, that £15 million. Jesus, imagine if we saw them. Now, you mentioned, do we see Spurs as being one of those top six? I think we would if you bought Jack Grealish for £15 million, but we wouldn't see you as one of those top six. We'd see you as a sworn and mortal enemy, one which we must slay at every corner. That's exactly what we would have seen you as. But you didn't, so we don't really see you that way. We did you a favor. We would, exactly, yeah, you did us a favor. Although we will for 90 minutes on Sunday, we will see you in that very same vein, and you, I'm sure, likewise.
Absolutely.
We're 56 minutes into the podcast. Genuinely, time has flown, and I was really interested to get your take on the Spurs situation, because even though last time we spoke, we were speaking about Spurs, and it was very much about the board. This has been a real eye opener about like how the House of Cards has I'm not going to say crumbled, but it's just a bit more has fallen in from it, and it all seems to be stemming from the top again. So it's never nice to see a club be in inner turmoil like that as well. So I do hope you guys get sorted out, but after Sunday, please, preferably, and then more power to you, pressing that up the league after that. But Matt, thank you so much for popping on. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. I don't know if you've done any preview prior to the match. I think you hadn't went out when I was looking at it, but do you have any? Where can the lads find any of your stuff? Maybe they want to go back and see any of your hot takes on Spurs over the last few weeks before coming into the game.
Yeah, look, what I've become very accustomed to saying is if you want to see a Spurs fan cry while watching the team play, my channel is the place for you. It's Matt Hayes Tottenham Blog on YouTube, or at Matt Hayes THFC on Twitter. I haven't done anything done for this game yet. I'm not sure if I will. I'm taking a bit of a step back from YouTube after a hectic and painful summer window, shall we say. But look, Neil, always a pleasure to join you on here. I'm in the comment section whenever I can. It's a fantastic channel, and it's a pleasure to be back on with you again.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much. And here's to Sunday. I, for one, I'm working tomorrow, so I was delighted that the game isn't on tomorrow, so I can sit down and bunker in on Sunday with a. I was going to say a beverage, but I think I'll be on the soup or the coffee on Sunday just in case, and I'll sit down and watch the game. But it's a festival of sport, so I won't have any inclination of moving. And it's supposed to be dirty weather around here anyway in Ireland over the weekend, so it's might be a day to light the first fire of the year as well, and we'll see. But listen, we'll chat to you again, Matt. Thank you so much for popping on, and for everybody who's out there, thanks so much for all you do for the podcast. The likes, the shares, the comments, the DMs. This week has probably been my worst week ever for getting back to people. Like I usually like enough to have a chat on Twitter and stuff like that. It's probably been my worst week ever. I do apologize. Just just a busy week on work and stuff like that. But keep the interaction flowing. I really love it. And we're on the way. I know it might only be 2,000 followers, 2,000 subs in YouTube, but we're on the way there. And if you know of anybody, as I always say, and now that we're opening up again, you're going to pubs, you're going to other people's houses. If there's any other Villa fans that are there and you see they've put their phone down and it isn't locked, subscribe them. They'll thank you for it afterwards. Believe me. So thanks very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Matt. Sunday at 2 p.m.
2, I think, yeah.
Sunday at 2 p.m. We'll be here with a Team Sheet Tantrum, as we always are, an hour and 15 minutes before the game. We hope to have our roving reporter, Paddy, outside the stadium, provided he could get good Wi-Fi. Dara, is there good Wi-Fi outside the stadium? Is there good internet connection outside the stadium? Because if he can get it, he's going to pop on, and we're going to have a live, in the moment, outside the Tottenham Hotspur Team Sheet Tantrum. So don't miss it. Thanks very much, everybody. This is the longest outro ever, so I'm just going to say all that's left to say is up the Villa.